absolutely gross. That boy is a P-I-G pig.
See if you can guess what I am now. I'm a zit. Get it?
Hollywood in the 1970s operated by a different set of rules, and some of what made it to the screen would never survive a single pitch meeting today. So buckle up, because we're counting down 13 movies that were normal in the 1970s but would be banned today. Number 13, The Warriors, 1979. Walter Hill's The Warriors was released in February 1979 and followed a New York City street gang fighting its way home through enemy territory after being falsely accused of murdering a powerful gang leader. The film was stylized and fast-moving, drawing on Saul Urich's 1965 novel, which was itself loosely based on Xenophon's Anabasis. Pictures marketed it aggressively, and it opened to large crowds. The problem was what happened outside the theaters. Within days of the film's opening, several incidents of gang violence were reported at screenings across the country. A teenager was stabbed at a theater in Palm Springs, California. Another was shot at a theater in Oxnard, California. A third incident occurred in Boston. Paramount pulled advertising for the film, and some theaters quietly stopped booking it. The film was never officially banned, but the speed and directness with which real violence attached itself to its screenings would make any studio deeply reluctant to release something with comparable energy today, at least without the kind of scrutiny and liability exposure that simply didn't exist in 1979.
Warriors, come out to play.
It eventually became a cult classic, and Hill has spoken about the film with pride, but its opening weeks remained one of the more alarming episodes in 70s cinema history. Number 12, The Boys from Brazil, 1978. Franklin J. Schaffner's The Boys from Brazil starred Gregory Peck as Dr. Joseph Mengele, the Nazi physician responsible for lethal experiments on prisoners at Auschwitz, who has survived in hiding in South America and is operating a secret plan involving 94 clone boys. Laurence Olivier played Ezra Lieberman, a Nazi hunter based loosely on Simon Wiesenthal, who pieces together what Mengele is planning.
What if I were to tell you that I could take a scraping of skin from your finger and create another Ezra Lieberman?
The film was adapted from Ira Levin's 1976 novel and handled its subject matter as a thriller rather than a solemn historical examination. Gregory Peck was cast against type. He had played Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird 16 years earlier, and the choice to put that face on Mengele was deliberate. Peck received strong notices for the performance and was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor. The concern today would center on the framing. A film that treats Joseph Mengele as an exciting thriller villain, complete with a charismatic performance, dramatic monologues, and a third-act confrontation designed for suspense, faces a different cultural reckoning in an era when Holocaust education and—
I don't mean you any harm.
You don't have to kill me, David. I will turn you and your entire organization over to the police.
sensitivity around Nazi representation have shifted considerably. The entertainment framework around one of history's most documented war criminals would generate serious pushback from Jewish organizations, historians, and advocacy groups in a way that a 1978 audience largely didn't apply. Number 11, Deliverance, 1972. John Boorman's Deliverance is based on James Dickey's 1970 novel and follows 4 Atlanta businessmen on a canoe trip through a remote stretch of Georgia wilderness before a dam project floods the river. What begins as an adventure turns violent when 2 members of the group are attacked by local men. Burt Reynolds, John Voight, Ned Beatty, and Ronnie Cox starred.
Without any questions asked, we get connected up with that body, and the law This thing's gonna be hanging over us.
And the film was a significant commercial and critical success, nominated for 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. The male sexual assault at the film's center is handled in a way that would draw sustained criticism today. The scene is brutal and brief, and then the film moves on. Neither the trauma nor its consequences are examined with any depth. The surviving characters debate whether to report what happened and decide against it, which is treated largely as a pragmatic choice rather than a moral failure. Ned Beatty's character, who was assaulted, is given almost nothing to do with that experience in the remaining film. The broader framing of the Appalachian characters, presented uniformly as threatening, inbred, and predatory, would face significant criticism today.
Man, what are we gonna do, Lewis? You're the guy with the answer.
Now you get to play the game.
For its reduction of an entire regional population to rural menace. The film's relationship between urban and rural America, and the particular way it treats violence against a man as a setup for action rather than a subject of consequence, represents a blind spot that contemporary filmmakers and studios would not be comfortable leaving unexamined. Number 10, The Candy Snatchers, 1973. Gurdon Truebloods. The Candy Snatchers is not a film that comes up often in discussions of 70s cinema, but it earned a specific kind of notoriety that has kept it in conversation among exploitation film historians. The story follows 3 criminals who kidnap a teenage girl to use as leverage over her father, a diamond dealer. What they don't know.
No! All you have to do is get the police. It's very important. You can save my life.
Is that a young autistic boy witnessed the kidnapping and knows where the girl is buried, literally buried, kept alive in a shallow grave. The film was made independently and distributed through the regional drive-in circuit, the standard route for low-budget genre pictures of the period. It was passed by censors in various markets with relatively minor difficulty, which itself says something about where the threshold sat in 1973. The content involving both the kidnapped teenage girl and the child witness was presented with a directness that the exploitation market of the time accepted as part of the genre's territory. Today, the production and release of a film depicting a child buried alive as a thriller mechanism combined with the extended victimization of a teenage girl presented for audience tension would face an entirely different regulatory and commercial environment. The film has no studio backing, no major cast, and no cultural prestige, the things that sometimes allowed controversial films to find distribution. It remains one of the more uncomfortable artifacts of what the American drive-in market was willing to screen in the early part of the decade. Number 9, Hardcore, 1979. Paul Schrader wrote and directed Hardcore in 1979. The same year, Schrader's screenplay for Raging Bull was in development. George C. Scott played Jake Van Dorn, a strict Calvinist from Grand Rapids, Michigan, who travels to Los Angeles and then San Francisco searching for his teenage daughter after she disappears during a church youth group trip and turns up in an amateur pornographic film.
Turn it off!
The film required Scott's character, and by extension the audience, to move through explicit depictions of the adult film industry as it operated in the late 70s, including peep shows, adult theaters, and production facilities. Schrader's intention was to frame this as a collision between 2 American worlds that rarely acknowledged each other's existence, using Van Dorn's religious rigidity as the lens. Scott's performance was widely praised. What would complicate Hardcore today is the amount of actual industry footage and depiction used to establish the environment. A mainstream studio film using explicit material from the adult industry as set dressing, even in a critical framing. would face a different set of conversations in 2024.
I suppose these are the extra expenses I've been paying you for.
Why the fuck don't you stay where you belong, back in Yo-Yo Land?
Get out.
Both from the MPAA and from advocacy groups concerned with how the industry itself is represented. Schrader has discussed the film relatively openly over the years, and it remains one of the more serious dramatic attempts to engage with the subject. But the mechanics of how it does so belong firmly to the era in which it was made. Number 8. Bad News Bears, 1976. Michael Ritchie's The Bad News Bears is remembered warmly by a generation that grew up watching it. A scrappy Little League baseball comedy with Walter Matthau as a hard-drinking, reluctant coach and Tatum O'Neal as the pitcher who turns the team around. It was a genuine crowd pleaser in 1976, rated PG.
Look, Mr. Buttermaker, quit bugging me about my food. People are always bugging me about it. My shrink says that's why I'm so fat. So you're not doing.
And played to family audiences across the country. The specific issue is the children. The kids on the team swear prolifically throughout the film, including language that would earn an R rating today without question. Several of the young players are shown drinking beer on screen. Walter Matthau's character, a deeply unqualified adult placed in charge of children, hands a can of beer to one of the kids in a scene played entirely for laughs. The racial and ethnic slurs delivered by the child characters as comedy dialogue were passed through the PG system without apparent difficulty. None of this would survive the contemporary ratings process. A PG rating for a family-oriented sports film.
Look, Amanda, you're a terrific kid. You shouldn't be hanging around with me. I mean, I'm an old, broken-down, third-rate ball player. I like to drink too much.
In which children drink beer and use slurs on screen is genuinely difficult to imagine today. The film was remade in 2005 with Billy Bob Thornton, and the remake received a PG-13, despite being significantly toned down from the original in most respects. The gap between what the 1976 version contained and what its rating suggested tells a fairly clear story about how much the standard shifted. Number 7. The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, 1976. Nicholas Gessner directed The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane in 1976 with Jodie Foster, who was 13 years old at the time of filming, in the lead role of Rin Jacobs, a fiercely independent girl living alone in a rented house and concealing a series of dark secrets. Martin Sheen played Frank Hallett.
Who is he? Mario Podesta. I asked you, who is he?
He's Mario Podesta.
Oh, yes. I think I've seen you hobbling around the
The
village.
adult neighbor who develops a threatening interest in her. The film was distributed by American International Pictures and received a theatrical release across the United States. The production included a scene in which Rin is depicted undressed. Jodie Foster did not perform this herself. Her older sister Connie Foster served as a body double, but the scene was marketed and discussed in the context of Foster's performance, and she was credited as the character whose nude appearance was implied throughout the film's promotion. The use of a minor's public image and screen persona to market and distribute a scene of that nature, regardless of whether a body double was physically used, would not be legally or commercially viable today.
Yeah, footprints. They're mine and my father's, I expect.
They're not very clear.
Listen, as long as you're here, you want to give
The protections around minors in film production, the regulations governing how studios may market films featuring underage performers, and the cultural expectations around child actors have shifted so substantially since 1976 that the film's existence as a mainstream theatrical release remains striking to look back on. Number 6. Animal House, 1978. John Landis directed National Lampoon's Animal House in 1978, and it became one of the most commercially successful comedies in Hollywood history at that point, earning over $140 million against a budget of approximately $3 million. John Belushi, Tim Matheson,
took a few liberties with our female party guests. We did.
And an ensemble cast played the members of the Delta Tau Chi fraternity at the fictional Faber College in 1962. The scene that would end any modern studio's involvement immediately comes at the film's toga party. A character played by Tom Holtze finds himself in a bedroom with an unconscious girl and debates internally whether to take advantage of her. A cartoon devil and angel appear on his shoulders to represent the argument. He ultimately chooses not to proceed, but the sequence plays the entire deliberation as broad comedy, complete with a laugh track sensibility. The unconscious girl is not a character in the film. She is a prop for a joke. Beyond that sequence, the film includes a scene in which a character realizes, after the fact, that a girl he had sex with may have been under the legal age of consent. This too is played as comedy, with the character reacting with mild alarm before the film moves on. By the standards of 1978, this was apparently within the range of what a major studio would produce and release. By the standards of any studio today, neither sequence would survive a legal review. Number 5, Last Tango in Paris, 1972. Bernardo Bertolucci's Last Tango in Paris starred Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider and was released in 1972 to a combination of critical acclaim and significant controversy. The film depicted an anonymous sexual relationship between a grieving American widower and a young Parisian woman.
I want to know your name.
And it was passed by censors in several countries with cuts, and outright banned in others, including Italy, where it was confiscated by prosecutors. What changed the conversation around Last Tango permanently was not the film's release, but a 2013 interview in which Bertolucci discussed a specific scene involving Brando and Schneider. Bertolucci stated that the two of them had conceived the scene the morning it was shot and deliberately chose not to inform Schneider beforehand, so that her distress during filming would be authentic. Schneider had spoken about the scene since at least the late 1970s, describing it as a violation of her as a performer and as a person. She said she felt humiliated and that she cried real tears during the sequence. Bertolucci's 2013 confirmation
I have to hurry. I have a cab downstairs waiting.
Go get the butter.
that Schneider's reaction was engineered without her knowledge or consent made explicit what Schneider had been saying for decades. In the environment that followed the hashtag #MeToo movement beginning in 2017, a film produced under those conditions would face immediate and sustained pressure from studios, distributors, actors' unions, and the press. Bertolucci died in 2018. The film remains in distribution, but its legacy is now inseparable from the account of how one of its central scenes was made. Number 4, Chinatown, 1974. Roman Polanski directed Chinatown in 1974 from a screenplay by Robert Towne, and the film is regularly cited among the greatest American films ever made.
Mulray,
yes, Mr.
I don't want to drop it. I better talk to your husband about this.
Why? What on earth for?
Jack Nicholson played J.J. Gittes, a private investigator in 1930s Los Angeles, drawn into a corruption case that reaches further than he can initially see. Faye Dunaway played Evelyn Mulray, the woman at the center of it, and John Huston played her father, Noah Cross. The film's plot hinges on a revelation of incest. Cross has fathered a child by his own daughter, and the film treats this not as a peripheral shock, but as its central tragedy. Dunaway's performance in the scenes where she confronts this history is one of the most closely studied in the film. The revelation is handled with restraint and devastating economy, and the film's ending, one of the bleakest in Hollywood history, leaves no resolution for what Cross has done.
What do the police say?
They're calling it an accident.
Who's the investigating officer?
The complication today is Roman Polanski. In 1977, 3 years after Chinatown's release, Polanski was arrested and pleaded guilty to unlawful sexual intercourse with a 13-year-old girl. He fled the United States before sentencing and has lived outside the country ever since. Chinatown would not be unmade or banned on account of this, but no studio today would greenlight a major production with Polanski directing. No major distributor would release a new Polanski film in the United States without significant consequences, and the film's reputation now exists in permanent tension with who made it. Number 3, Taxi Driver, 1976. Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver is an undisputed landmark of American cinema. Robert De Niro played Travis Bickle.
Oh, the meter. What are you doing? What are you doing at the meter? Did I tell you to put, did I?
A mentally unstable Vietnam veteran working nights driving a cab through a New York City that felt, in 1976, genuinely dangerous and decayed. Bernard Herrmann composed the score. It was the last work he completed before his death in December 1975. The film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 1976. Jodie Foster was 12 years old when she was cast as Iris, a child prostitute whom Bickle becomes obsessed with rescuing. The California Labor Commission required a child welfare worker on set during Foster's filming, and her older sister Connie served as a body double for certain sequences. Foster had been working professionally since she was 3, but Taxi Driver placed her in explicit narrative situations. Solicitation, underage prostitution.
Oh yeah? Huh? Okay.
The world of pimps and clients that no production could handle the same way today. The casting of an actual 12-year-old in that role and the production of scenes depicting her as a working child prostitute in graphic detail would require a fundamentally different approach in the current environment. The child protection regulations now governing minors in film production, combined with the understanding of how such material affects child performers regardless of their professional experience, have changed significantly since 1976. The film remains a masterpiece, and Foster's performance is remarkable, but the specific conditions under which that performance was obtained no longer exist in mainstream filmmaking. Number 2, Manhattan, 1979. Woody Allen wrote and directed Manhattan in 1979.
So
that's
perfect, right?
Yeah, that's,
I know. I mean, I was sleeping with him, and he had the nerve to give me an F. So.
Really?
Yeah, really.
And shot it in black and white CinemaScope with a Gershwin score as a love letter to New York City. It starred Allen as Isaac Davis, a 42-year-old television writer who is, at the film's opening, in a relationship with Tracy, a 17-year-old high school student played by Mariel Hemingway, who was 16 during filming. The relationship is presented entirely sympathetically. Isaac is occasionally self-conscious about the age gap. It comes up in conversation, but the film frames Tracy as mature, sincere, and genuinely in love.
Yeah, I do like her. Now we both like her. Yeah, well, I liked her first. What are you, 6 years old?
The film's emotional climax depends on the audience accepting that Isaac's departure from this relationship is a loss, and that Tracy's feeling for him is real and worth taking seriously. Allen's script treats the dynamic as romantic and bittersweet, not troubling. Hemingway was required to film a scene in which she and Allen's character are in bed together. She was 16. The film was released with an R rating and received enormous critical praise, including 5 Academy Award nominations. Allen won the Writers Guild of America Award for the screenplay. Today, the production of a film in which a 16-year-old actress films a romantic bedroom scene with a 44-year-old co-writer-director, and in which the central romantic relationship between those characters is presented as tender and valid, would not reach the screen in the form Manhattan reached it. Number 1. Pretty Baby, 1978. Louis Malle's Pretty Baby is the film that sits most uncomfortably at the top of any list like this. Released in 1978, it starred Brooke Shields.
Well, I'd like to know where the hell y'all been. I've been lying here forever. Oh, you don't care about me at all.
Oh, Violet, that really wasn't funny.
Who was 12 years old during filming, as Violet, a child growing up in a New Orleans brothel in 1917, who is eventually sold to the highest bidder when her virginity is auctioned off. Keith Carradine played a photographer who becomes obsessed with her. The film was a Paramount Pictures production with serious artistic intentions. Louis Malle was a respected filmmaker from France, and Pretty Baby was considered a legitimate work of period drama. It was rated R and received theatrical distribution across the United States and internationally. It was shown at the Cannes Film Festival. Brooke Shields appeared nude in the film.
I likes my woman with a little more on the top and bottom.
Stop being so cheeky with me or I'll get my voodoo woman to go gree-gree.
She was 12 years old. Her mother, Terry Shields, provided consent and was present on set. By the legal standards of the time in many jurisdictions, and by the cultural standards of the film industry in 1978, this was considered permissible within the context of an artistic film production. It would not be permissible today. The production and distribution of a major studio film featuring actual nude images of a 12-year-old child, regardless of the artistic framing, regardless of parental consent, regardless of the director's reputation, would constitute a serious violation of current federal law in the United States.
You deserted the child. I don't mean to be cruel, but...
Dare you say that? I did no such...
The film exists. It remains in circulation in some forms, but nothing about its production would be legally reproducible under current American law, and no studio, distributor, or streamer operating today would touch it. The 1970s were a decade when Hollywood operated with a freedom that was, in several important respects, a freedom to cause harm, particularly to young performers who had very little legal protection and were working in an industry that had not yet built the guardrails that now exist. If you found this one worth watching, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more film history coming your way.